Wake up, wake up. It is week 18. Happy January the 3rd. Welcome to Wake Up, brought to you by Sam's Chowder House. Damon and Larry back together on a Friday, getting you ready for Niners Cardinals. Let's go.
Yeah, Friday, January 3rd, indeed. Happy New Year, everyone. Great to see you back here. Thanks so much for riding out the string with us. We've got the final game of an otherwise miserable 49ers season on tap for Sunday. It's the Arizona Cardinals, and we're here to talk about it, what the priorities are, how they should get through it, and what the offseason will begin to look like. It's great to have you here. Thanks so much to Sam's Chowder House for sponsoring. As always, great to see our friends at the Chowder House. Hopefully they had a nice little break and are ready to kick off 2025 in a great year down there. I'm going to go get a bowl of chowder, I think, before I officially get back to work on Monday. Could be this weekend getaway. And look, Larry, I think we should let everyone know that your right eye is got a little pudding in it. You got maced or something. I don't know what's going on, but a lot of people are looking at you already going, well, what's up with Larry's eye there?
Yeah, it's on my right eye. This would be my right eye. This would be my left eye. Right. But yeah, no, just fell asleep on the couch watching too much football, and I wear contact lenses, and so I woke up this morning with a red left eye. So there you go. I'll have to let it calm down a little bit. But yes, right eye good, left eye kind of red, and not that.
We're not putting Larry on IR. He plays hurt. He's not going anywhere. Did you see the news today? Indiana's quarterback, Curtis Rourke, just played the entire year with a torn ACL. Unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. He's going to go in for ACL surgery now. So we play hurt here. And interesting day of football for sure. Let me just bring up the fact Indiana didn't lose to Ohio State nearly as bad as Oregon did, or lose to Notre Dame nearly as bad as Georgia did. So, it's a Kirk Herbstreit eat a dick Friday in the Damon Bruce house. That's for sure, Larry. I'm feeling good about that. I'll take the wins where we can get it. But here we go. It's the final game of the year for the 49ers. And I'm telling you, you're going to be able to hear players' tires screeching out of that parking lot. I think everyone's just looking forward to wrapping this one up as fast as possible, and mailing it in the final game of the year doesn't even sound like a bad idea to me. Like, I know, like, football, beat your chest, tough guy talk, blah, 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 blah. Just get everybody off the field healthy who matters in week one. For goodness sakes, we just did this last week with Brock Purdy. How did that go?
Yeah, in fact, John Lynch was on KMBR this morning, and he said Brock's going to most likely miss this week, but no long-term issues. The UCL looks fine. That's what Shanahan said yesterday. And then today, John Lynch kind of echoed those sentiments on KMBR. He says it's really nothing more than like when you hit your funny bone. He did that, and when you get an NFL helmet in the wrong place, it irritated the nerves a little. He says... he said shortly thereafter, he was like, basically, I guess initially the severity of Purdy's injury was unclear. The early reports suggested an issue with the hand before later pinpointing the elbow as the problem area. And then Lynch said, then shortly thereafter, he said, hey, he just got dinged on the elbow. It caused some numbness. And so everything's all right. Brock's going to be fine, and it's just a deal where it's got to quiet down. So
Josh Dobbs getting a start.
Josh Dobbs gets a start in week 18. But once again, I mean, it's like, I don't want to beat a dead horse, because at this point, it doesn't really matter. But a lot of people are like, oh, it's weak second guessing. No, it's not weak second guessing. We said it ahead of time that he probably shouldn't have been in there. The risk reward made no sense. What are you getting out of week 17 as opposed to what potentially could you have risked there? And it's not just like, well, football is rough and that, yeah, but you play at the odds all the time. All NFL head coaches all do is manage risk. So you manage risk all the time. And to me, I just felt like they were like, put risk aside and was just like, hey, 3 new starters back there. Who cares? We'll throw Brock out there. And then listening yesterday to the football hour, Tim Ryan suggested that maybe the Niners won't wind up extending Brock this offseason, that maybe they'll do other things first, and maybe put that off. So, we talked about it last night on the radio. I'm like, hey, do you want to extend Brock now? Do you want to extend Brock later? Or do you want to extend Brock never? And believe me, there are people in all three camps.
Well, it really just depends on what camp, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, and Jed York are sitting in. That's the only camp that matters. Everything else is just noise around the topic. And I think that they'd be silly to do anything other than considering extending Brock Purdy without even kicking the tires on a guy like Tanner Mordecai. Again, what I want to see this week from the 49ers is pretty much the one thing I know I'm not going to see. I'm not going to see, Abnaconda. We're not going to see players who might benefit next season at the end of a lost season. And it really just, Kyle Shanahan's a really smart guy. Mike Silver's book is called, The Why Matters. Explain it to me. Why are you doing this? I don't think Kyle can explain to me how he has gone about managing the end of this lost season to the point where I would really understand it, because there are questions that I think it would be smart to answer now going into next year rather than just leave them as questions. And, I guess one of my questions would be, so it's Josh Dobbs going in week 18. Well, then why was it Brandon Allen in Green Bay? Why was it Brandon Allen in Buffalo? Why did this team go to not Josh Dobbs if Josh Dobbs is the backup quarterback when that was an opportunity that was there? Was Dobbs hurt? Is that why Brandon Allen was in there at that time? When it comes to, publicly acknowledging who's really hurt around here, I don't trust the 49ers any further than I could throw them collectively. I think they lie about injuries or mask the severity of them and have done that all year long. So, explain to me how your quarterback room even works here, Kyle. I don't get it. Why did Allen?
Because he likes Allen. Because he had Allen higher on the depth chart the entire season. I mean, it's not complicated.
Week 18?
Because he didn't feel like he played well. And he felt like Dobbs outplayed him and, deserves this start. I think ultimately, if you ask Kyle, and he kind of said it this week, he's like, they were on an even playing field. So he didn't really have Allen in front of Dobbs. He just gave Allen the start, probably because of seniority. And he thinks they're the same kind of guy. I mean, I don't know if he thinks they're exactly the same, but he obviously has them, 1 or, 2 and 2A. And he doesn't see a lot of difference between the two of them. So he gave Allen the first shot. He didn't look all that good. He's giving Dobbs the second shot. I asked Dobbs yesterday, I said, have you enjoyed your time here? Have you learned from Brock? Do you want to come back? And it was really, really clear that he gave me a long part of the answer was like, Brock was incredible and I learned this and that. And, I did learn a lot from Brock. But then when it came time to talk about, staying, he didn't say, hey, man, I've loved it here. I really enjoy it here. I want to stay here. It was like, we'll let that solve itself. In other words, I'm out of here. And I think when he got bypassed by Shanahan for Brandon Allen in that Green Bay game, he probably decided right then and there, hey, man, this is not the spot for me. So I'll say this. There's an awful lot of people who are like, Dobbs. You don't really have much to cry about when you're talking about you're backing a 3-11 quarterback. I mean, that's you're basically saying that, hey man, our 3-11 backup quarterback's better than your 2-8 backup quarterback. All right, whatever. Okay. If you want to say he's better, I'll go with you on it. Is he world's better? 3-11. That's
well, I guess my point would be I don't want Josh Dobbs or Brandon Allen back as a backup quarterback next year. I don't think either necessarily fits the bill. Play Tanner Mordecai. I mean, I sound like a broken record. I think it's absurd.
I asked that question as well. I said, are you going to play Tanner Mordecai? He said no, unless there's an injury.
Yeah, won't even dress him, I'm sure. Won't even be dressed for the game.
No.
Abinaconda, instead of seeing what this young man has at running back, they're going to decide not to dress him for the game, I'm imagining. Any other quarterback?
My guess is he'll be up. That'll be my guess. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see on that one. I think he'll be up. If he's not up, I would just sit there and go, wow. We'll see. I mean, let's just say this. If he's not up, he sure as hell better not be able to play, because if it comes out later that he could play and he was pretty good, you're going to look really bad. So if you think he has any ability at all, you may want to play him in week 18.
Well, when it comes to losing the game, Larry, it's not going to be just an easy thing to do because the Arizona Cardinals, aren't exactly a world-beating football program themselves. They've lost 5 of 6. They have not been right since James Conner went on IR. And, this is two bad teams meeting each other. The only advantage Arizona really has is the games in their, on their field. And I don't know how much of an advantage that really is in any way, shape, or form, because there's probably going to be more 49er fans at the game than even Arizona Cardinal fans. That's just the way Niners fans travel. So, lose the game, you pick 11th in the draft. You win the game, depending on what else happened around that win, what the 49ers could fall, I think, as far as 13, 14, not below 14 or 15. So there really isn't much wiggle room. But I'll take the best draft position that you possibly can. So I would suggest the 49ers don't win this one and pick 11th in the upcoming draft. That would be my advice. And I'm sure the 49ers won't take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's negligible. It doesn't really matter. I mean, this just doesn't matter. I mean, you're going to have to make the right pick no matter what. Obviously, the higher picks, the better, but it doesn't matter. It's 11 versus 12, 11 versus 13. I mean, it's all pretty negligible. I mean, really what you just want to make sure is that you finish and you get whatever answers you need to get from the players that you have on your roster. But this thing has just been an ugly season start to finish. And it's just a matter of, what do you do going forward? I mean, they the one thing the 49ers have tried to do almost each and every year since Super Bowl 54 is do as little change as possible, believing they're on the doorstep. Now that belief is totally squashed. They're not on the doorstep. They're several moves away from, getting back into the Super Bowl picture. And so this idea that they need to run it back, I think, needs to be off the table. And then to me, it's all about uncomfort. Everybody down there is too comfortable. I mean, you can hear it in their voices. Shanahan talks about Schneider. He's doing a hell of a job. Shanahan talks about, Sorensen. He's doing a hell of a job. Everybody's doing a hell of a job. But guess what? Devondre Campbell 3 weeks ago was doing a hell of a job, according to these guys. So I'm sorry if I don't believe you. You know what I mean? Devondre Campbell was not doing a hell of a job. And yet 3 weeks ago, before he went AWOL on the 49ers, according to Nick Sorensen and Kyle Shanahan, he'd never looked better. So sorry if I think they're all full of shit. I'm sorry. How do I know you're lying? Because I saw your lips moving. It's as simple as that.
Look, and you're coming around, Larry. You're coming around. A few weeks ago, I called Shanahan a coward for.
You can't call him a coward. That's ridiculous.
You got all upset, and then
that's a ridiculous statement.
That guy. So
that's a ridiculous statement. I mean, you're putting real human stuff on football coaches because of football decisions. That's not about.
It was a cowardly football decision at the time.
Cowardly. Cowardly is running away from bad guys or whatever. It's not. You're not cowardly because of the way you coach.
Coward, Larry, is what I meant. I meant football coward. That was pretty obvious, I thought. Coward. Anyways, I'm glad you're starting to see that there is, not all is right in 49erville. That's for sure.
Nobody said it was. I mean, they won 6 games. They were the inverse of what most of us thought. I thought they were going to be 11-6. They're 6-11. If you sit here after you predicted them to go 11-6, and they're 6-11 potentially here if they lose Sunday, and your take is that, hey man, nothing's wrong, then you're probably on the take. I mean, the Niners have got them right where they want them take, is pretty much garbage. I mean, that's just a garbage take. The reality is Shanahan, too comfortable. Brock Purdy, too comfortable. John Lynch, too comfortable. Players in the room, too comfortable. Everybody's too comfortable. Jed's too comfortable losing. He said it last year. Hey, I'm fine if we lose to the Lions in the NFC Championship game. That's not okay with me. John Lynch is a great face of the franchise, but he's too comfortable as well. They've had 20 missed picks in the first 3 rounds of the draft, or overall in his era. And in the draft, I looked it up this week. I couldn't believe it. The 49ers are in the 21, 22, and 23 drafts combined, went 2 for 12, and their only 2 hits were Jair Brown and Aaron Banks. The rest of them were misses in the first 3 rounds. There's 5 major reasons the 49ers are at where they're at. And the 5 major reasons are the DeForest Buckner, Javon Kinlaw disaster, where you traded away Buckner, drafted Kinlaw. That's number 1. The 21 draft is number 2, where you traded a bunch of picks for Trey Lance and then proceeded to take Trey Lance, Aaron Banks, Trey Sermon, Ambry Thomas with your first 4 picks. You had 4 picks in the top 102. You went 1 for 4, really 1 for 6 when you factor in the 2 picks additionally in future drafts that you traded for Lance. So you went 1 for 6 in 2021. You followed that up in 2022 with having 3 more picks inside the top 105 picks, and you took Drake Jackson, Ty Davis Price, Danny Gray. So you went 0 for 3 there. Now you're 1 for 9 in 21 and 22. Then you come to 23. You took Jair Brown, Jake Moody, and Cam Latu. You had 3 picks in the top 101. You went 1 for 3. So I'm counting 2 for 12 in the first 3 rounds with no stars, and the only hits are Jair Brown and Aaron Banks, neither of which is going to get a second contract with the 49ers. While you were doing that, Detroit in the same drafts landed Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Kirby Joseph, Aiden Hutchinson, Sam Laporta, and Brian Branch. So you want to say, why are the Niners bad and the Lions are good? Because Brad Holmes has GM'd circles around John Lynch. So he needs to be less comfortable. That's just period. That I know everybody respects John, but that's a reality. They need help personnel-wise.
Why do you think the Niners went so public with the, oh yeah, everybody's back, the leak to Mayoko that he went public with and saying, Lynch is back, Shanahan's back. Why do you think that there's a level of everything is fine around here that they're projecting so much? Because I agree with you, like making guys uncomfortable is a good thing around a sports team. And they do seem a little bit too comfortable. And we both agree that Shanahan probably shouldn't go somewhere. How come it doesn't apply to John Lynch like that? Like, to me, John Lynch is the easy guy to subtract from the equation and put somebody else new in there.
Well, first of all, did you see the game this weekend? I mean, as soon as the second pick came out, this is a game that meant nothing. The 49ers could have won that game 100-0, and they weren't going to the playoffs. Why is John Lynch in his box looking the most animated he's ever looked in a game that means absolutely nothing? Why are they playing this out like it meant something when everybody else knows it means nothing? I mean, it's a great question, really, right? Why is it that they're super fired up to beat the Lions and Cardinals when they're out of it, when they looked kind of lukewarm throughout the season at best? As they didn't. Where was this competitive, awesome fire? Earlier in the year, I didn't see
week
that.
3, week 5.
Where was this desperation when Ayuk was holding out all summer? Where was this desperation when Trent Williams was holding out? I mean, this whole thing has just gone south for sure this year. But the other guy who needs to be felt to be made uncomfortable the most, I think, is the guy who needs it the most is Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is a great competitor. But Brock Purdy is not a top-tier quarterback. Brock Purdy's a second-tier quarterback, but he's a great competitor. But you took away his competitive fire. It's like giving somebody who lacks motivation a long-term guaranteed contract. You just killed all of their motivation. There's guys in the NBA, and you're like, dude, how come that guy can't make free throws? Ben Simmons, how come he can't shoot? Where's the motivation to go be in the gym all summer when you've got $147 million in the bank and it's all guaranteed and nobody can touch it? It's like, you know what? You're going to do, you've taken away their motivation.
Yeah, no,
Sometimes
it's the Marvin Hagler. It's hard to get up and do your road work when you're sleeping in 10,000 count thread sheets, and so yeah. I mean, unless that guy is a self-starter, like here's the thing, like the reason why I never had any problem with paying Nick Bosa, and the reason why I got no problem with Nick Bosa as a player is because that guy comes ready to go every single chance. There isn't an ounce of fat on him. You could pay him a king's ransom. There isn't an ounce of fat on him. He's a self-motivator. He's a self-starter. Kevin Durant, kind of the same guy. Really doesn't matter what you're paying him. That guy wakes up, he goes to the gym, he goes home from the gym after he plays the game. He just gym rat, nothing but gym. Steph Curry, same way. Give him all the money in the world. He ain't taking any days off. That is not how most athletes are wired. And you know who I think might have fallen into this maybe more? Debo, a little bit. Debo got that money and sort of took a little pressure off of himself, don't you think?
I personally don't. I just think that he has run out of juice because I think all guys who run through people get to 28, 29, and they kind of run out of juice. So I think that's what's happened there. He may have let himself go weight-wise, but I don't see people talk about his weight all the time. That's just his body type. He's always going to look kind of bulky. He's pretty lean. He's pretty lean, actually. If you look at him and if you see him practicing, he's pretty lean. But I just think that you run through people for 3-4 years. All of a sudden, you look up and there's a price to be paid for running through people, and that's the price that they paid. But I mean, to me, the 49ers need a little competition is the answer to everything. It really is. You don't like, what you're getting productivity wise at work out of your employees, bring in somebody else who outworks them and then either fire them or they'll get with the program and start working harder. I mean, competition, I think, is a good thing. And Brock Purdy was really, really good when they gave him nothing and said, you're just going to compete with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. He was really, really good last year when they said, hey, you're going to be our guy, but if you don't play well, Sam Darnold is sitting right here. This year, shockingly, with nobody there that could take his job, there was some regression with the talent around him regressing. So some of it was the talent around him that regressed, but some of it, I think, is the fact that he knew he had the gig and there's not as much competition. So maybe you're a little bit smarter with the football. If you throw this ball wrong and it goes to the defense, your backup's going to be, you're going to replace your backup as the backup. This year, I think they need to challenge everybody. Get a draft consultant. Definitely, change out your defensive coordinator and your special teams coordinator. There has to be some accountability there. Go for a more established defensive coordinator for sure. And then, as far as Brock Purdy, put another quarterback in that room that if Brock plays bad in September, contract or no contract, here is the next guy. Now, who's that going to be? Is it Kirk Cousins? He's available. Is it Aaron Rodgers? Is he going to retire? What's the best they can do as a backup? And after looking at Baker Mayfield, looking at Sam Darnold, looking at Geno Smith, you know what? I'm pretty intrigued by all the different relatively young reclamation project quarterbacks that are out there between Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Davis Mills, maybe Anthony Richardson if they move on from him. And then I kind of liked what I saw yesterday at a Riley Leonard as well. I'd be happy taking a Riley Leonard shot on day 3 of the draft, or your guy at Indiana. A lot of people, he's another day 3 quarterback. So, I would say be very clear in your thinking with Brock. Brock, we want you here. You're our guy, but we're going to keep drafting quarterbacks because, the trend is you need a Hall of Famer to win it. And you're not quite a Hall of Famer. We're going to surround you with the best we can, but we're going to also keep looking for the next quarterback. And just lay it out there. Just lay
Let
it
me
out
ask
there.
this. Do you think Brock would hold out? Because it's good competition. We're not paying you. We're going to have you play out the final year of your rookie deal. You're still, we love you, Brock, in so many different ways, but you still are in this gray area that is in between. Let's get a deal on you, or let's pay you more than any other quarterback's ever been paid in the history of football. And we still don't know exactly what to do. So you got one more show it to us year here. And, you do show it to us. Maybe we'll start, in the middle of the year, we'll restructure or something like that. But, maybe the pressure that Brock is looking for doesn't come from the player in his rearview mirror, but the guaranteed contract that everyone says is coming, maybe not coming. That'll certainly get your attention.
Well, I mean,
it's a very dangerous game to play.
Well, yeah, I mean, that you have to communicate. Okay, it can't be one of these. We communicated through our offers. No, you have to communicate and then make offers, not communicate through your offers. But here's the dilemma, and everybody knows it. The going rate for quarterbacks is $60 million. That's the top of the market. This guy's played really, really good football, and he deserves a contract extension. Now, if you want to make an argument he doesn't deserve $60 million, that's fine. But all these quarterbacks that have become free, all of these guys have signed for $50+ million. I mean, you're going to have a hard time arguing that he's not worth the same money that Tua's worth, or that he's not worth the same money that Hurts is worth. So that's the question is, what is his market? What is his rate? What do you pay him? The best quarterback in the world is Patrick Mahomes. He makes $45 million a year. Okay, that's one comparison. The going rate top of the mark quarterback right now is Dak Prescott at 60. So if you're trying to set new records, you're going north of 60. There's a whole slew of quarterbacks who sit between 50 and 60. None of those guys have won a Super Bowl, by the way. And then it's so here's how I would probably go about it. Brock, we want to sign you, but we have reservations based on the way the season went, both about our team and you. We're not blaming it all on you, certainly, but we have some reservations. If we're going to get into a big money long-term extension right now, we'd prefer it to be closer to 40-45 million. His agent's going to say, go fly a kite. And if I were the Niners, I think I would say, hey, look, how about this? If you want to sign now, let's sign in our neighborhood. If you want to wait and potentially go for your neighborhood, we can wait a year. But we don't want to go to your neighborhood with that level of a commitment right now based on the way things went. We want to, even though it was our stated goal to get you signed and you're absolutely our guy. I think this year proved that while you aren't a product of your weapons, you're going to be a whole lot more successful with a full complement of weapons. And nobody's as good without a good surrounding cast. And I think the same way Mahomes took 45 and is allowing the Chiefs to build around him, we'd like you to take something in that neighborhood so we can build around you. We don't think we can build as good a team if you're at $60 million.
This is why
lay it out there and see, would he rather wait and go and gamble on himself and take a risk and go for broke? Is he all about the top of the scale, or is he all about getting that Super Bowl ring and settling on a more palatable number? So I think that's the way you play it. And Tim Ryan said it yesterday on the Football Hour with Greg Papa. He's like, he said, from what I'm hearing, they, may not get the contract done with Brock this year, that it may be a next year type thing. They may ask him they may try to put it off, largely because of what we just described.
Not to interrupt, but why the hell come out 2 weeks ago and say this is our top priority? This is why you need to stop saying things into microphones, 49ers. Like, why go publicly with we're definitely get it done? Like, keep your own counsel. You don't have to share your innermost thoughts with every single question you get asked. Like, I don't understand why the Niners
Didn't play their cards a little bit closer to the vest.
Yeah, why paint yourself into a corner? Because if you want to get out of it, you look like you look like you don't know what you're doing,
or you're backtracking, or you're reacting you're overreacting to the latest thing, and you've got recency bias. I mean, I think they like him and want him as their guy as long as they can get him at a reasonable price.
Both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are living in different zip codes, if not for Brock Purdy. They damn well better like him. He saved both of their asses.
Right.
Saved them. So they should like him an awful lot.
Yeah.
But he could also be the vehicle which flushes their careers too. If he gets a mega extension and, regresses, doesn't work out, whatever, a million things can go wrong during a contract. Look, I think Brock deserves to be paid. He's already given his hometown discount and what he's been paid in the first few years of his career here. I would just like to see, guaranteed money carry the day more than years or terms or annual average value. And then you can always convert that guaranteed money and mess around with it and manipulate it, massage it, however you want throughout the remainder of his. I mean, remember, Patrick Mahomes signed the richest deal ever, and not even a few years later, he's not even a 10th highest paid quarterback because he restructured and he took all that guaranteed money and rejiggered it to the point where it's not affecting the cap as dramatically. Purdy can still sign a mega deal right now and only have it count 10, 12 million towards the cap next year if it's done right. And this is what Parag does. Parag does these deals. So there's a way it's
going to be one of those things
and make it make sense. I hope they find the right way to do it.
It's going to be one of these contracts. And Dieter made this prediction last night, and I kind of agree with him. It's going to be one of these contracts that people are going to lose their mind over because it's going to be a big number. And then it's going to be, but they've got an out after this year, and they've got an out after this year, and the club is protected. And that would be my guess. My guess, it's going to be one of those win-win. The agent wins in the eyes of his client. The client wins in the eyes of the public. He's got, $65 million AAV. And people are like, what? $65 million AAV. But then when you look closer at the contract, you're going to see that there's outs and ways to get out of it and protections and this and that. So that's my guess is how it's going to go. We're probably all going to sit there and go, if it's anything north of 55 million, I think there's going to be an awful lot of people going, what? Now, here's the thing, though. You can't just ignore the market. You can't be like, well, you know what? There's all these quarterbacks making 50, and they don't have the resume of Brock Purdy, but they may have more physical stature. You just can't. You're not going to be able to make him the exception to the rule. Everybody's not going to get 50, 55, 51 to Goff. All these guys are making north of 50, mid 50s, and then all of a sudden Brock Purdy comes along. And they're like, no, you're going to make 28 or you're going to make 30. I mean, it's just not. It might be a great dream for Niner fans to be like, oh, we paid our quarterback nothing. He's willing to work for nothing. But the reality is that that's probably not the case. I mean, you're going to get a market value contract. Now, I would say it's advantage 49ers to kick the can down the road. Why? I mean, if you said to me, what's the biggest sports aberration you've ever seen in your life in any sport? There's no doubt. I don't even have to think about it. It's the 2021 San Francisco Giants. Easily the biggest aberration of all time, as far as what we thought they were and what they ultimately became. They're the winningest team in the history of the franchise that dates back to 1883 or something like that. So it was an amazing season. Why? What did people get out of it?
Gabe Kapler.
No, that's not what I get.
Genius, Larry.
Yeah,
ran a genius out of town. What are we doing?
I'm having an egg, and I just did a bicep workout.
I like pepper. Pepper is my main ingredient and condiment. I don't use salt. I don't use ketchup. I don't eat bread. I've never had a crouton. I have a tanning bed. I sleep in a tanning bed.
That guy is just the most annoying guy of all time. But no, they had 19 guys on their 25-man roster who were basically either free agents or their contract was up at the end of the year. So that's what happened. I mean, they had they had so much motivation. They had so many guys who had the carrot dangled. So I get no problem. It's always advantage team when you dangle the carrot. Competition has made this country. Competition is what's going to make the 49ers go get another quarterback so that Brock plays better. Go get another personnel evaluator so that John Lynch evaluates better. Go get another defensive coordinator so that the defense plays better. Don't, go get more competition. Make Brock Purdy earn it another year if you can. Competition's a good thing. I mean, there's no question about it. It's a good thing. So more competition, no matter what you pay Brock Purdy. I don't care if you pay him a lot or you pay him a little. You got to have somebody else there that can do the job. Otherwise, I don't think you're going to get the best out of him. I just think that's the way he's wired. He's a competitor first and foremost. So let him compete. Don't take away that competitive fire from him.
Look, as far as this show is concerned, there is only one zero competition situation in the Bay Area, and it's with our friends down at Sam's Chowder House. There is no competition in Half Moon Bay for the greatest restaurant in Half Moon Bay. It's Sam's Chowder House. It's one of the great restaurants in the entire state of California. You got to get the lobster roll, the paella, the cioppino. It is all fantastic. We thank Sam's for sponsoring us. They've been an incredible sponsor for the entirety of the regular season. And we hope that Paul and Julie will want to come with us into the off season, Larry, as we talk about what this show looks like and how we're going to be bringing this show to people. Wake up, what we're going to do through it with the off season. Obviously, through the draft, we're going to stay all over it. Maybe take a month off here or there. We'll figure it all out. But the NFL officially never sleeps here. And if the 49ers go ahead and lose, they will have won the competition for the 11th pick in the draft. I want to see him pick 11th. I do think that there is more value in 11 than there is in 12 or 13, especially if the name that is getting attached to this pick is a name that's really there. And I guess this is where we start talking about maybe some of the college football that we've seen over the last few days. And if you are a 49er fan and are inclined to start looking ahead at the draft, you've probably already run across the name Mason Graham. Mason Graham is a defensive tackle from Michigan. There are two defensive linemen from Michigan, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, who are top 15 picks in this draft for sure. Kenneth Grant is probably a top 5 pick. He is a beast. He's a monster coming out of Michigan. His teammate, Mason,
not Kenneth Grant. You're talking about the other guy.
What?
You said Grant's going to be a top 5 pick. It's going to be Graham, I think.
Okay, excuse me, Graham. Pardon me. We'll see whether or not the 49ers are attached to either of these guys. I've seen Mason Graham be the guy, 2-time first team All Big Ten player, 9 sacks over 2 years, lots of pressures. This is a player that would fit well with the 49ers. And if you could get him there, oh my God, that's who you take.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that has to happen between now and the draft. I mean, there's, you got the combine, you got the all-star games, you got the weigh-ins, the workouts. You got to figure out actually how big and fast each one of these guys is, and then make sense of the whole thing. I personally, I think this is a trade back draft for the Niners. This is, I don't know if they will, but I think they should. It's just there's a lot of good depth in this draft. I think personally, when just looking at it, it's a major draft for certain positions. Like every year, I mean, some years it's just really good at certain spots. This year, for example, well, I mean, there's a lot of great running backs this year. I mean, you're going to be able to find really good running backs, all the way after the draft. I mean, there's just so many good running backs. I've started to make my big board of who looks good across the board, and it starts with Ashton Gianti, who's the Boise State kid who ran into Penn State's defense. But there's Amarion Hampton from Carolina. There's Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson from Ohio State. There's Nick Singleton from Penn State. Those are the premier guys for sure. The Cam Scatabo kid from ASU is fun to watch. He obviously is a tremendous talent. But then there's this whole, group of day 2 guys and day 3 guys that are going to be amazing. Quentin Cooley from Liberty, Montrell Johnson from Florida. Marcus Yarns from Delaware, Ulysses Bentley the fourth, who ran last night for Ole Miss. There's a lot of guys. Le'Veon Moss from A&M. What's that?
Niners really don't even need a running back, though.
No, I'm just saying you asked me what was the deepest spot. Running back is a deep spot. I mean, wide receiver to me is kind of a thinner spot. I don't see as many great wide receivers, but, it's going to clarify itself. I just think they need volume. They need, the 49ers have a lot of needs. They've got a lot of needs. I mean, they've got to hit. I mean, that's the thing. I know the tendency is to want to trade up for fewer guys, so it's more sure things, but the reality is that the draft is not a sure thing, and that you could have just as much success trading back as you could trading up. The team that I would tell you to go watch, they played last night, but if they do a replay, is the Ole Miss Rebels. They have just so much talent over there, led by Walter Nolan, their defensive tackle, who's probably going to go in the 20s or late teens. And I think that would be my plan if I could trade back a few spots and start my draft with a guy like Walter Nolan. But yeah, there's
Jackson Dart's getting drafted. Like that guy can play.
Jackson Dart. I mean, they've got Trey Harris, who's probably the best receiver, if not the best receiver. He's one of the best receivers. He's amazing. Just watching their game last night, I mean, Trey Harris did not play. And they came out in that bowl game and they just put up a ton of points. They looked amazing in the process. Their offense, I mean, they just have, Lane Kiffin has the transfer portal thing going really well for them. I mean, they're getting amazing guys. There's talk that they may get more amazing transfers next year. But to me, Ole Miss right now is a little bit of a factory. They were so incredible last night, 52-20 over Duke. And just looking at that game, watching it last night, Jackson Dart, 27 of 35, 404 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. He also ran 12 times for 43 yards. So Jackson Dart's an NFL player. Then you have Ulysses Bentley the fourth. He had 2 touchdowns. He was fantastic runner, receiver, running back.
By the way, incredible name right there, Ulysses Bentley the fourth.
He's awesome. He's an incredible. Then they got a tight end named Caden Prieskorn, who's really, really good. And they've got receivers up and down. Antoine Wells Jr., Jordan Watkins last night had 7 catches for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he's in this draft as well. And he's thought to be a day 3 guy. And then on defense, it's an incredible array. I mean, Kari Coleman is an incredible linebacker. Jared Ivey's a great pass rusher. Trey Amos is a terrific corner. Prince Amunamalian from Florida State, the transfer. He's a hell of a player. I mean, Walter Nolan's a first-round pick. J.J. Pegues is a big-time defensive tackle / fullback. So, I mean, they just got a ton of guys. Chris Paul, their linebacker, is amazing. So, I mean, Ole Miss is amazing. It's going to be a really exciting, couple months here. But the 49ers need their equivalent of the 86 draft. In 1986, the Niners were on the heels of drafting Jerry Rice. And they had this great player, but they also needed depth. So what did they do? They traded back 3 or 4 times. I think their first pick might have been in the second round in the 40s. And then they proceeded to draft Kevin Fagan, Charles Haley, Steve Wallace, Don Griffin, Tim McKyer, Tom Rathman, Larry Roberts. I mean, you name it. It was like a who's who of big-time players. And what happened on the tail end of that? The 86 draft, they grew up in a year, right? 87, the Niners go 14-2. 88, they win the Super Bowl. 89, they win the Super Bowl. 90, they lost in the NFC Championship game. You could make an argument that on the heels of 85 Rice and 86 draft bonanza, the Niners built themselves the team that became the Niners of the late 80s and even carried into the early 90s. So the point is that here they are again, and they have tried to trade up and sign one guy, Hargrave, Lance, and it didn't work. But now they also need their 86 draft. And I know the tendency is going to be trade up, but they really need to trade back, accumulate picks, and then hit.
It's funny how every team in football is basically trying to balance their roster on the teeter-totter of star power and depth. And the teams that, have ungodly star power at a specific position, like a Jamar Chase at wide receiver, Joe Burrow, you see how dangerous they are, yet you see how incomplete the teams around them are as well. The depth of Detroit has lent itself into a star power conversation, but I don't know how many just individual bright stars there as much as the collection of depth is impressive. And to me, like if you're offering me, which would you rather have? All the 9 Pro Bowlers from last year that the 49ers offered up and a problem with your depth or real depth or a lack of star power. I think to get through a season, you'll take that depth almost any time. Depth is what is needed to get through a football season more than star power, because stars can get extinguished on any one play. I mean, it's a sport of did you survive the day? And it gets harder and harder to survive without greater depth in this league, and you just see it everywhere you look.
Oh, it's no different than building a house. If you have depth, you have a wide base. If you have no depth, you have a narrow base. And you want the widest base possible, or so that house doesn't fall down. I mean, to me, it reminds me an awful lot of what happened with the Warriors. I mean, you gamble for big time guys because big time guys like KD only come around every now and then. So you always gamble. So you take those guys, but then all of a sudden they get hurt. And now you had this depth of talent, strength in numbers. You sold out for stars, and now your stars got hurt, and now you got nothing. Now all of a sudden you got a pretty weak team that was being propped up by stars. And that's kind of where the Niners have been in the last year. They were a team that was propped up by stars whose depth was eroding because of years of bad drafting, and it just was camouflaged by all those shiny objects in the window. There's McCaffrey, there's Ayuk, there's Debo, there's Kittle, but in reality, it used to be there's a great D line, but now there's Bosa. There's great receivers, now it's just one. There's great tight ends, now there's just Kittle. So I mean, it's just they've lost their depth, and so it's and now you mix in a McCaffrey injury, a Debo injury, an Ayuk injury, and all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh, we're not that good. That's where they're at.
Speaking of stars and Pro Bowlers, we got some Pro Bowl honors that I guess we need to talk about here. 4 Niners named to the Pro Bowl: Nick Bosa, George Kittle, Fred Warner. No problems with all 3 of them. Kyle Juszczyk. Has a Pro Bowler ever done less to help a team through a season than what Kyle Juszczyk just gave the 49ers? That's okay. You want to have Kyle Juszczyk as your Pro Bowl fullback? Sure. Why not? I think he was a waste of space all year long. Brock Purdy, Trent Williams, Leonard Floyd, and Diamador Lenore have been selected as alternates. I know Lenore's a little chap that he didn't get nominated to the team itself proper. I would agree with him there too. I would have Diamador Lenore maybe even in front of Fred Warner at this point. And I'm the biggest Fred Warner fan.
But it's not. It's about what corner is less deserving.
Right. I know. But I think that Lenore was just one of the best 49ers all year. Trent Williams as a Pro Bowl alternate, I wouldn't even bother. I don't think he even deserves that. When he was out there, he was all right at best. He wasn't certainly dominating Trent Williams, and he's been hard to find this year. Lots of reasons why, of course. Leonard Floyd, sure. Purdy, sure. Okay, as alternates, but I mean, the Pro Bowl just doesn't even need to be played. Just name the guys.
Well, it isn't played.
Right.
It's not played. I mean, once again, this is also a big part of the Niners' problem. Last year, they had 9 Pro Bowler starters, I think, and 13 with the alternates. This year, they have 4 Pro Bowl starters and 8 with the alternates. So their top level talent is eroding, and they don't have the depth to back it up or to rise to the occasion. Their issue, the whole Pro Bowl thing, Patrick Mahomes didn't make the Pro Bowl? Really? I mean, Patrick Mahomes is not one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the AFC. He's the best quarterback in the world. They're 15-1. I don't give a crap what his stats look like. Watch the games. They're 15-1.
Oh,
the
Larry,
job is to win the game. This guy wins the game every single week. He's got to be a Pro Bowler. I mean, I realize, who do you take Lamar off? Do you take Joe Burrow off? Do you take Josh Allen? I get it, right? I mean, there's some great players there. But how do you not make the best quarterback, the 2-time reigning Super Bowl champion, who's 15-1? How do you not get him in there? He's got to be there, man.
I honestly think that he should get MVP consideration.
Of course.
I mean, the only reason why we're not is because the NBA decided, well, we can't give this thing to Michael Jordan every year, so we'll give one to Karl Malone, and we'll give one to Charles Barkley, and we'll give one to, but it was every year that Michael Jordan was in the NBA, he was the MVP of the league. And it's the same thing for Patrick Mahomes. He's the best player in the league, but not by a little either. Not by just he's a little bit better than Josh Allen. No, he dominates.
This is the ultimate year for the MVP debate. If you love the MVP debate, this is your year. You have a Saquon Barkley who's not a quarterback, but he's having a phenomenal season that's worthy of MVP status for sure. I mean, how could it not be? He's on the verge of taking down a record that Eric Dickerson set in 1984. I was 14. I mean, my God, that's got to be, worthy of the MVP. Then you have Josh Allen, who's been the best quarterback this year, I think, in a lot of ways, as far as the way he's played the position. Then there's Lamar. I don't know where the Ravens would be without Lamar. Then you have Mahomes, who literally is the best quarterback, and his team's 15-1. I don't know what more he could do. Though people say, well, there's some statistical negatives to his resume. And then there's Joe Burrow, who's on a team that's not very good, but he's put up the numbers. So it's like, this is the year where whatever your criterion is for the Hall of Fame, you could literally make an argument for every one of those guys. And it's like, what is the Hall of Fame? Or what is the Hall of Fame? What is the MVP? Is it the best stats? Then it's Joe Burrow. Is it the best player on the best team? Then it's Patrick Mahomes. Is it the best statistical year on a winning team? Then it's Josh Allen.
Right. Is it
the guy who means the most to his team? Then it's Lamar. Or is it the guy who had the best season, regardless of position? And then it's Saquon Barkley.
Right.
So I mean, it's like this is the year where whatever your reasoning is, you could literally. I mean,
right.
I guess the question is this: would you rather, if it came down to the best stats on a not good team, Burrow, versus the best player that we know on a 15-1 team, like, does the team record matter a little, a lot, or all? You know what I mean? I don't know what to say.
How do you define value? Yeah. I mean, it's MVP. We know the M is easy to figure out. The P is easy to figure out, but that V in the middle can be debated for as many hours as there are in the day. How do you define value? Right. It's great sports talk radio.
It is. I mean, who would you go with? Because I love the year that Burrow's had, but I gotta go with Mahomes. I bet on Kansas City a lot this year. I watched a lot of those games. He wasn't great this year at times, but he didn't have Pacheco. But they still found ways to win all these games at the end. So, God, isn't that work? I mean, if we're going to say Brock Purdy's not him because he throws picks at the end of games, how do we not reward Mahomes for what he does at the end of games? Because he's perfect.
And
he's
look,
literally an instructional video on how to win.
What are we going to do to, eliminate Lamar? Say, well, you shouldn't have lost to the Raiders. Well, that wasn't him that lost to the Raiders. That was the Ravens around them. But it feels like Lamar just got one. He's not going to get another, right? Like there's a little
two, right?
Bias. Right. So there's a little recency bias there. I think this year it will be Josh Allen. I think this is the year where he gets it. He's been, leaning forward to break the tape at the finish line and still coming up short for the last few years. I think it's his year to pretty much get it.
It seems like a compromise, though, doesn't it? It's like, well, Burrow's got the best stats, and Mahomes has had the best season team-wise. So let's take a guy who's got not the best stats, but good stats, and he's had success. He hasn't had the same success as Mahomes, but he's had success, and we'll give it to him. It feels like I think this is Josh Allen's best chance to win a ring. But I'm a little old school on this thinking. I think I would still give the MVP to Mahomes.
I'll tell you this, Saquon Barkley has been unbelievable all year long. Like, you want to talk about,
right?
Now we're going to factor in how did you play when you were up against it in a game? I don't know if anyone can say that they had a better year up against it than Saquon Barkley did. And obviously he's just a running back. He can't, control the play too much. He can just run with the ball or catch it. And he's been amazing all freaking year long. And I think that is an Eagles team that, almost went out of its way to trash its own season with some dissent. And he just was the steady Eddie drumbeat of, I got this, guys, that the Eagles have been leaning into all year. But again, was he that much better this year yardage wise than McCaffrey was last year from a touchdown standpoint? I don't know. Christian McCaffrey had one of the all-time touchdown scoring seasons in NFL history last year. So I think Barkley gets eliminated just because it's a quarterback's award now. We know that, and that's just the way it's going to behave. I think it's going to be Josh Allen. I think it's going to be Josh Allen. And here's the thing. The guy that they do pick for it, like, I'm not going to have a problem with it. There's going to be arguments for the other guys, but the guys that ends up getting it, even if you do give it to Joe Burrow, like, what are you going to do other than shrug and say, yeah, okay, you can make an argument that he deserved it.
I just look at Mahomes. Somebody's like, Mahomes had a terrible year. What? How can you say that? He had a terrible year. He did not have a terrible year. I was the Niner game. The Niner game was the only game where he had more interceptions, I believe, than touchdowns. He had two picks that day, and he didn't throw a touchdown. And still, they beat the 49ers in San Francisco by 10. So I don't know. I mean, come on, you win all the games. They lost their only loss all year was at Buffalo. I don't know, man. Mahomes. I don't know. You want to say Mahomes hasn't had a vintage Mahomes year. That's right. One thing, but to say he had a bad year, I don't know.
I mean, there was nowhere really to go but down for him. And as his statistics dipped, the Chiefs have just put together the best regular season in the history of their franchise. So,
I'll take that year. I'll take that year every year. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, come on. Then this guy's like, hey, Mahomes has the best head coach, play caller, defense, and defensive coordinator. Well, technically, the head coach and the play caller are the same, but you made them seem like two different guys.
I mean, can you hold that against him, though? Is that,
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So what? I mean, and what's your point? Every one of these guys has good players around him, every single one of them. And even Josh Allen. Josh Allen has been sacked less than any other quarterback in football. That line in front of him has been fantastic.
Hey, you want to talk about another name that could actually enter an MVP debate? He'd get crushed statistically, and when it all said and done, what happened? But who the fuck are the Washington Commanders if anyone is under center than Jaden Daniels? I mean, that guy was as valuable to a winning formula, to a turn things around formula, as any player was in football. Jaden Daniels was unbelievable this year. Unbelievable. So,
amazing. How great was that game the other night against Penix? How good is Penix, by the way? Did you see the way Penix played?
It kind of makes you wonder what the whole Kirk Cousins thing is about, right? I mean, or maybe that's Penix being brought along slowly, but Penix is he needs to play. Like there's
he's playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's playing. I mean, the Cousins thing is, that's the other thing. It's like, Kirk Cousins is not a very good starting quarterback, but he would be a hell of a backup quarterback. Could you get him as a backup quarterback? Would you, would the thing, this is the part where Kyle, I feel like, doesn't want there to be any kind of, bad vibes. So like I don't think he understands the competition thing as much as he wants there to be smooth sailing. But like Kirk Cousins would not make Brock Purdy happy that he's there. I'm sure Kirk would be a great backup, but you know what?
I don't think it'd make me happy either, because Kyle's going to go right into that. I've always wanted to play Kirk Cousins, and now I got the opportunity to, and I'm going to give up on
that.
Yeah, I'm going to give up on one guy in the name of I finally got this guy, and like I didn't know, no Kirk Cousins. I don't want Kyle to have that lever to pull. I really don't.
I hear you, but I mean, right now you don't have a good backup quarterback. I'm not about I'm not about making anybody comfortable anymore. They were comfortable this year. They didn't win shit. Everybody was comfortable. No more comfort. No more comfort. Everybody should be competing for their job. And to me, if Kirk Cousins makes Brock uncomfortable, that's all the more reason to have Kirk Cousins. But I mean, I'm just wondering, do you think Kirk Cousins is at a point? And I was asking my son this the other day. Do you think Cousins is at a point where he's now he is a backup on a really good team? Or do you think Cousins could be the starter for some teams? I mean, I know there's always a shortage of quarterbacks and he's got experience, but he's made a lot of money because he played on the franchise tag. He's probably made more money than anybody else. He's probably made the most money. If you look at quarterback play and the way his contract has come down, he's made a ton of cash and he's never won. And does he want to be a starter on, I don't know, who would he start for? The New York Giants? Maybe does he a starter on the New York Giants? Because I personally, like people say, Rodgers is going to retire. I'm pretty sure Rodgers is going to retire. But Cousins is interesting because Cousins could be a backup, and then I think, the Niners would make a lot of sense. Or is he just a little bit too good to be a backup? Is he going to be somebody's starter? I mean, I'd love to know what he wants at this point. If he was willing to take $5 million to be, Brock Purdy's backup, I could go for that. I hear what you're saying.
Look at it this way. What's the Brock Purdy deal if he is signed 1-2? And if he's signed to a big one, I don't think you can be spending $5 million on a backup quarterback.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying is, don't pay him $55 million, pay him closer to $45 million and pay $5 million to Kirk Cousins to be the backup. I'd rather have, to me, I'm done. I'm done burying. I mean, I never was burying Brock Purdy, but I'm done listening to people bury Brock Purdy. And I don't think, I don't think that they should dump Brock Purdy, but I also don't think that they should go forward with him without having competition in that room. You got to have competition. Because this year without it, he regressed. And part of it is because he knew he had the job. I know it is. And if he didn't know he had the job, he would, everybody plays better when they will lose their job if they don't.
Is the regression because he was comfortable or because his wide receivers couldn't beat man coverage, not for a game?
Both. I think it was both. I mean, I feel like I got a pretty good handle on who the guy is. I think he definitely tried to shoulder more of the load this year, but I also think it was just a matter of, he's a competitive guy. I mean, if you go up to him and start talking to him about anything, I mean, you can tell he's a competitor, and they took away a lot of that, all the competitive deal this year. There was it's his job and only his job. All I'm saying is,
if you are the man, don't you need to excel in that situation? I mean, really, like, I know that we have the glaring and the lovely example of look at how good Montana was when he got pushed by Steve Young, but
it's just human nature.
I pretty much think that Joe Montana was going to be really good no matter what. Like, had Steve Young never even been born, Joe Montana.
He already was good before Steve Young. He was better with Steve Young. And Joe is just, I mean, it's like anything else. It's like, I mean, I think everybody's better with competition. Tom Brady beat out 7 guys to become Michigan's quarterback. I just think if there's competition, that's if you don't like the job someone's doing, bring somebody in to compete. Somebody in here says,
right? What was it? Was it
Drew Henson, Brian Greasy, and others. Lucian LaChance says, I'd rather the 49ers try to sign Zach Wilson. I brought up, reclamation projects to Dieter, and he was intrigued by Zach Wilson.
What's Zach?
I kind of believe that Zach
now?
Wilson was going to be their pick in 2021. If the Niners had the second pick and not the third pick, I think they would have taken Zach Wilson. Now, would it have worked out? I don't know. But I really believe that that's who they wanted. All right,
so Zach Wilson will hit the market totally Ali Oxenfree in terms of whatever you might paying him. He's making $5.45 million. It's the final year of his fully guaranteed contract. So Wilson will be hitting the market for whatever he can make.
Probably right about that.
Zach Wilson at $3 million as a backup. Let's talk.
Or $5 million even. I mean, he's probably, the backup quarterbacks are, 5 to 10 million.
I would have liked to have seen Tanner Mordecai do something to make me think, hey, maybe you can bring him back as a guy in the room, and let's find out this final week of the regular season, which is a totally lost week. But again, he's probably not going to even dress for the fucking game. And how
about this? How about you go for a reclamation project quarterback like a Zach Wilson or a Mac Jones or a Fields or somebody like that? Somebody who's better than Dobbs, better than Brandon Allen. And then you bring back Tanner Mordecai. And on day 3 of the draft, you draft a guy like Riley Leonard. And then you go to camp and Brock's your 1 and your reclamation quarterback is your number 2. And let Tanner Mordecai and your day 3 quarterback of choice, I threw out Riley Leonard. It could be a couple other guys, compete for that third spot. And then, if whoever loses out is the practice squad quarterback, or probably most likely you wind up losing that guy to waivers. But yeah, that's how I'd structure the room next year. Give me Brock. Give me one, quarterback. The reclamation aisle is worth looking at. I mean, look at Baker. Look at Darnold. Look at Geno. Look at how many quarterbacks come into the league and suck. And then some of those guys are going to drift away, and some of those guys are going to rebound. If you can find the guy who's going to rebound, heck, I mean, that's a great bargain. So,
by the way, we're getting a Jimmy Garoppolo start in the final week of the season. So if you're wondering, did it just get more handsome in here? The answer is yes, it did.
Jimmy's going to start for the Rams against the Cardinal, or against the Seahawks?
Is that who they got to wrap it up with? Yeah, I think so.
I'm not sure who they're playing, but he will be starting for the Rams. A Ram team that's sitting Matthew Stafford. Why are they sitting him? Because they're resting him. They're getting him ready for the playoffs. So they're tanking. Can you believe the Rams are tanking?
Tanking all the way into the postseason. Larry, let's check out some of the supers that have come in today. We haven't gotten to any of them, and then I have a little something that just proves our addiction to the sport of football to bring up at the end of the show today, and then we'll wave goodbye to everyone and send them on to a very nice weekend, hopefully.
Joseph Ernberg, not playing possible good players like Tanner Mordecai and Izzy Abanaconda is football cowardly, in my opinion. Kyle's a good coach, but we can't defend him always.
I would like to me, what I don't understand is why Kyle doesn't see the value in answering some questions about his own team.
We just don't know how they have these guys evaluated. They may feel like those guys are not NFL. I don't know.
Well, again, then we have to talk about why are they on your roster? What have you done in the last 12 weeks, or excuse me, longer than that, the entire season of practice to get them up to NFL speed? Like, there's a serious drafting issue and then a development issue that we can't have Jacob Cowing run a play from scrimmage in the final week of the regular year and the final week of his rookie season. He's just on punt duty where he's going to slip within the first 6 yards. I don't get it.
Well,
I really don't get it.
Okay. Jacob Cowing, I agree, needs to play more from scrimmage. The one, though, that is criminal, if they don't give him a shot to play, is Tanner Mordecai. Why? Because I think it's pretty clear at this point. The one thing that the 49ers cannot say is they cannot say that they knew that Brock Purdy was Brock Purdy. They can't.
No.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have taken him with the last pick in the draft.
Right.
Every other player they picked in that draft pretty much stunk. So the only thing they really got out of that draft was Brock Purdy, and they took him with the last pick in the draft. So you can't really make an argument that you knew Brock Purdy was Brock Purdy. That's one. So two, since you know that Brock, and that seems like it's a common thing with quarterbacks now. It's like everybody knows what a good one looks like when they see it at the NFL level, but it's really, really difficult to project a college starting quarterback into the NFL with any certainty. And it's just failure ridden. And we've seen the failure. For that reason alone, you've got Tanner Mordecai, who had two really productive, prolific type years for Sonny Dykes in his offense, went to Wisconsin and solved the Big 12, played pretty well, has 4.4 speed and the best arm of anybody quarterback-wise on your roster. And you're not going to give him a shot. You're not going to give him a look, even though if you hadn't given Brock a look, would Brock be Brock right now? I mean, what did Brock Purdy need to become Brock Purdy? A chance,
a rep,
a game. Somebody had to put him in the game. And I'm not saying that Tanner Mordecai is the next Brock Purdy. I don't believe he is, but I know for sure he's better than Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs.
Let's find out whether or not he's even Tanner Mordecai. Okay, we don't even know if he's Tanner Mordecai. So let's find out if he's
Put him out there.
Is he good enough to have back in the mix next season in some way, shape, or form?
They kind of admit that they like him more than, they kind of admit that they like him by they're like, hey, we really like Tanner Mordecai. That's why we wanted to keep him around. Well, if you really like him, then why wouldn't you play him at some point? I mean, and why wouldn't when would you play him if you're not going to play him now? So this guy's only going to play in a couple series in the preseason. It's like, get him out there. Let's see what he can do. I mean, you didn't invest anything in him. It's like, it's amazing to me, really, Damon, when you think about it. It's a free lottery ticket. If somebody hands you a free lottery ticket, do you want it? Fuck yeah, you want it.
Right. The odds of you cashing it aren't good.
Low.
But you're giving me a free lottery ticket? Yeah, I'll hold on to it and see what
I want a free lottery ticket. Yes. And you show me the person who, when asked, do you want a free lottery ticket, says, nah. It's a lottery ticket. Is it a dice roll? Yes. But do you want it? Yes. And it's like, you know what? This is a dice roll. If Tanner Mordecai goes out there and falls on his face and plays terrible, nobody is going to blame you guys for having him as your practice squad quarterback. But guess what? If he goes out there and plays well, they are going to credit you for being really smart. So why wouldn't you roll that dice? You can't lose. From my vantage point, the Tanner Mordecai dice roll is one that you should be eager to roll.
You get a free comp to buffet and the Rain Man suite here. There's nothing. Here's the deal.
There's no downside.
Let's say you play Tanner Mordecai and you lose.
Great. That's actually the best thing that could happen to your football team in this last week anyway. So losing is fine, Kyle. Losing is fine.
Or he goes out and he really plays well, and now you got a little something to think about next year. You're right. There is no losing. Either way, it's snake eyes. You win. Right. You win.
And if he goes to Arizona and out of nowhere, it was unbelievable. He threw for 310 yards and 3 touchdowns, and they won. Guess what? You now have a piece that you can trade. And you don't have to go after Andy Dalton for $4 million or Zach Wilson for $5 million because you can go with Tanner Mordecai for the league minimum.
How about that? Yeah, you go ahead. How about this? Maybe the player that you then trade because Mordecai was that impressive is Brock Purdy. It just opens up a world of options that without even exploring it, don't feel like they're available.
What if he was? First of all, people are sitting there going, well, you guys are crazy. Was it crazy to think that Brock Purdy could be good? Yeah, it was, but he was. So yeah, it might be a long shot, and we're talking about a long shot, but Brock Purdy was a long shot, and you hit on it. And if you wound up hitting on Tanner Mordecai, it's a long shot, but let's just say he actually has the goods. Damon's totally right. You could turn around and trade Brock Purdy probably for a decent draft haul, and now you're that far ahead.
Here's the one thing that we all got to keep as our operational system here. Nobody knows anything. Nobody knows anything. Shanahan, Lynch, Vince Lombardi, John Madden,
Mel
Larry
Kiper.
Krueger, Damon Bruce. No one knows anything until the player actually goes out and plays.
Right.
Let's see the player play, and that way we might know something. Right now, we know nothing. So I'd rather
Lamar
know
was the last quarterback taken in the first round the year he came out. If he was redrafted, he would have been the first quarterback. Kevin Woods would also.
Thank you for being a member for 12 months. So I started memberships about a year ago, and we got a lot of people coming up on a year of memberships. That is a wonderful way to support my channel, to support any YouTube channel, to become a member. I know, Larry, you have a lot, and thank you very much, Kevin.
Kevin says, would also be nice for the 49ers to trade back and restock assets, allows flexibility in team building. Eagles have been kings of stocking and using assets. Yeah, Howie Roseman has done a nice job. Say whatever you want about Howie Roseman. He's done a nice job.
Who's saying anything negative about Howie Roseman?
Well, there have been a lot of people that have ripped Howie Roseman and been critical of him.
They ripped Santa Claus,
But I mean, he's done a really nice job. I mean, think about it. Last year in the playoffs, they could not stop Tampa to save their life. They had a bad offensive coordinator, a bad defensive coordinator, and a disastrous, non-existent pass defense. Here we are a year later. They got the number 1 D. They took Mekhi Becton from bomb as a tackle in New York to star at right guard for the Eagles. They have this big physical offensive line. They added Saquon Barkley. They brought in Vic Fangio. They brought in Kellen Moore. Suddenly, they don't have bad coordinators. Suddenly, they don't have a bad defense. Suddenly, they're a Super Bowl contender again. And I think they're going. I think it's going to be Eagles in the NFC. Rico XXX. He says, went to Sam's Chowder House. Lobster roll is the bomb.
Awesome, yes. Rico. Glad you had a great lunch or dinner.
Glad to hear it. Fuji Simeon says, Larry, SI versus SH Bruce Mahoney game is coming to Chase Center. I did see that. That's going to be interesting. Will the SH fans be able to get through the metal detectors? Rob Iman says, if I'm Jed, I would have Brian Greasy be Kyle's OC in 2025 and have Greasy work with Purdy and allow Greasy to override Kyle at times. Greasy may not even be here. He's rumored to be the new OC at Michigan. So we'll see if Greasy's even here. We got this one from Jorge Luis Sotelo. Damon, you like fish? Are you familiar with goose? You should check him out.
Jillian and I went and saw him at the Warfield last year. Very good live. I am officially 81% sold on Goose. Yeah, they're good. Good jam band. Wow. Like them.
Look at that. Fuji Simeon, the guy who emceed at the Warrior home games, is an SH alum and called out SI Kittens in promoting the Bruce Mahoney Boo SI and SH Reardon fight song better than SI fight song because it's short and simple. And
are we saying Franco Finn?
Flows.
Franco Finn?
Franco Finn, yes. All I got to say is Franco Finn would have gone to SI if he had gotten in. He didn't get in.
I will say this about Franco Finn, too. You won't meet a nicer guy in your entire life. Well, he's like one of the nicest guys ever.
Oh, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. But Franco, you would have gone to SI if you had gotten in. Lorenzo Gonzalez. Cousins is a seasoned stat stuffer only. Move on. Are you talking about DeMarcus? Fuji Simeon 13 says, if Zach Wilson comes, players better hide their moms.
Hey, all I can tell you is that he picked out a hot blonde. I mean, you can say what you want about banging your mom's friend, but when your mom's friend is a dime, is it really embarrassing? I don't know.
Did he bang her? Did she bang him? Nathan McFadden, can we get one more in-season honest rant on Brendel?
How about this, Larry? How about this for a little bit of an idea, though, to just shake up this offensive line? What about kicking Pooney out to right tackle and asking McKivitz to play right guard?
It's not crazy. Pooney can play a lot of spots. I think Pooney's better at guard. I think McKivitz is best as a sixth offensive lineman on a championship team. I think they're, the Niners, a lot of people are Niners need to rebuild the entire O-line. I think they do need to get a couple guys in this draft for sure. A tackle, a center. My favorite two players in this draft, offensive line wise, Anthony Belton, who's a gigantic tackle from NC State, probably slated to go in the 3rd round. Really like Anthony Belton. And then center wise, there's a guy named Marcus Lair who plays at Montana State, and I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl center, and he's going to be a day 3 pick. Really, really like Marcus Lair. Saw him in a couple of the games earlier this year, and he's kind of like a Jason Kelsey, who also was like a 6th round pick. Just just kind of a a little bit shorter, maybe but a little tough, super tough. This guy played tackle. He can play center. I think his best spot center. He's a little short armed, but he's a brawler and a tough guy. Really like that guy. Blood Moon says Chase and Cone really say Sirianni. Did Chase and Cone really say Sirianni's better than Kyle Shanahan? I don't believe so. I would say.
I mean,
no.
it's not the year to make the argument otherwise, right?
Yeah, I thought Chase was arguing that Kyle was better than Sirianni, but I could have gotten that wrong. All right, so we've got all these supers. We'll get this one from Dusty Ghosts. Larry doesn't need to be pushed. Well, no, but competition's a good thing. I've always believed in that. If you really don't like what you're getting in your company, go bring in some competition. If you don't like what you're getting in any aspect of life, bring in some competition. Competition will, iron sharpens iron.
By the way, thanks to Alex Simon over at SF Gate for the nice article about us and a few other people who have left radio for greater fortunes on YouTube. Very nice little article about us over the weekend, Larry.
Really? Did not see that.
I'll forward it to you as soon as we're done.
Yeah. What's the genesis of the piece? That can't be just you and I.
Hey, these radio guys are still thriving on YouTube, and YouTube is more relevant to sports talk than radio is these days. So it's I'll forward it to you. Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing. It really is amazing. And if I can have a hand in elevating my radio brothers on YouTube, I'm all about that. And that, we have had Cy and Damon and Paulie and John Lund and some of these guys on. And I'll say this, I'm not doing it as a handout, or I'm doing it because these guys are good, and they all trying to show them the way, but I'm also, want to give them a opportunity to kind of say, hey man, I'm out here, I'm doing my thing. And you know what? Nothing really has happened other than the audience has migrated from the radio per se to this, right? It's all about the cell phone. When you get in the car, this doesn't pair to your car. Your car pairs to this. So this is the star, is the cell phone. So it doesn't matter if what you're on, radio, satellite radio, internet, YouTube. It doesn't matter where you are. You've got to figure out how to connect to people through the cell phone. And if you do, you're going to thrive. And if you don't, you're going to wither.
Yeah. Fuji, thanks again. You're always very generous. This is not a Warriors show, but if you want some Warrior information, Cyrus and I at 11 o'clock are going to be doing a Warriors weekly show. So follow us over there. And again, Jorge says, thanks for making a challenging season fun. Thank you very, very much for watching. It's been a challenging year to watch and stay interested in this team all year. So we thank you and 49er fans. And I'll tell you this thing, Larry, whether the team is good or teams are bad, really doesn't matter. We're addicted to watching. And the last segment of today's show will be proof of that. Television would not even exist, by the way. Television would not even exist without football right now. 100 most watched shows of 2024, 70 of them were NFL games. 10 political contests, the debates, the conventions. It was a political year, obviously, so those programs around that did well. 3 college football games from the playoffs, 12 nights of Olympic competition, 1 World Series game. The women's
Which
NCAA
one?
title game.
Did it say which World Series game?
No,
Probably game one.
Yeah, it didn't say which. Sorry.
Remember that game one was epic.
It was with the Freddie Freeman walk-off.
Yeah.
Tracker, which is a show that came on after the Super Bowl. Say to say that Tracker would not have cracked the top 10 had it been placed anywhere other than the show after the Super Bowl. So you can almost give that one to the NFL too. The Oscars and the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. 70 of the 100 most watched shows in 2024 were all NFL games. What is interesting about this, Larry, not a single NBA game, not a single NBA playoff or finals game, nothing. Not a single men's NCAA tournament game, not a single golf event, not a single NASCAR race, not a moment of hockey comes even close to cracking the top 100. So we really are living in a world where it's the NFL, then it's college football, then it's, well, I guess men's basketball, but the women are rating with a bigger audience on a singular day than the men do right now.
Well, no, it's not, right? Though you said the World Series is in there, but not the NBA Finals.
One World Series game.
Yeah.
One World Series game.
No, I mean, it's all football. It's all football. I mean, people ask me all the time, hey, Krug, your first year on the channel, you talk tons of Giants. You put yourself on a lot of post games. And I did. But the Giants, were not very exciting. They were not a very compelling product. And, the worst 49er stream does, 3 times the best baseball stream. So,
no doubt.
So that's really what it's about. We're doing this for money. So, I mean, I'll talk Giants if the Giants today sign Pete Alonso, I will go live in the middle of a day where I wasn't planning on talking about the Giants at all. If they sign Pete Alonso, I'll go live. But if they're not exciting, I don't have to go live and
if they
talk
sign
about them.
Sasaki, I'll go live with you.
Yeah, they get Roki Sasaki. We'll all go live, and it'll be amazing.
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live.
Will there be a live watch party, SF Indigo? Yes, and I'm happy to tell you that after several weeks of trying to coordinate this very hard to book guest, Paulie Mack will be joining me for the live watch party. We've had some great guests. Krueger joined, John Lund joined, my buddy Sam Batesh joined recently, and we're going to go ahead and have Paulie Mack join us in the second quarter for the watch party.
I think we might have missed this one. I think we might have missed this on the super list. Who should the Warriors make? Fuji Simeon says, who should the Warriors make a move for? If it's Josh Giddey, then better make sure he knows the age of consent in California. I don't know the Giddey backstory on that, but I do like Josh Giddey. I think that the Warriors are in the mix for Vucevic. I also think they're in the mix for
Jimmy
Zion.
Butler. Jimmy Butler.
I don't want Jimmy Butler. I hope they're not in the mix for Jimmy Butler because Jimmy Butler's older. But Zion makes sense to me. He's 24. Eventually he'll get his body right, I think, and be good. He was really good last year. So and then Vucevic and Giddey make sense. The Bulls are looking to sell. The Warriors are looking for a big man who can shoot. I think you can get Vucevic for very, very little. I think you might be able to get Vucevic for a second-round pick, or maybe even a player in a second-round pick.
I'll tell you what the Warriors should be entertained. The Warriors should entertain the unthinkable.
Trading staff? No, I don't.
It's look at it this way. It's the only way. It's the only way this whole thing. Look, they're
not going to win.
They're not going to win another championship this year. There's no move that I think puts them back into a championship conversation. And the entirety of the end of Steph's career is going to be a frustration around not being able to support Steph the right way.
Trade him where? Where would he want to go?
I don't know the answer to that, but this is why we have adults, not fans.
I'm thinking the Knicks.
Well,
if I'm the commissioner of the NBA, I want him in New York with the Knicks.
If I were just trying to do business on behalf of the Golden State Warriors, I'd be interested in Oklahoma City because nobody has more moving pieces and assets to flip than Oklahoma City does.
I thought you were going to say Charlotte. What do you think of Charlotte and a deal for Melo?
No, probably not.
You should have drafted
instead of James
Harden for Steph. Wouldn't that be something?
Look, it's not going to happen. No one's got the balls to do it, but it's something that maybe needs to be talked about. That's all. It'd be a talk radio segment if talk radio.
Joe would rather not win and keep Steph and make the money than trade Steph, lose the money, and win. And I'm not saying that he doesn't care about winning over money, but I'm just saying he's leveraged himself on that arena.
That's the thing. They're not going to kill the golden goose. And, Steph is the golden goose. And by the way, last night, he was incredible. I mean, couldn't miss last night.
How bad is Philadelphia?
Vintage. Oh, they're terrible.
What is going on with Philadelphia?
Any team that has Joel Embiid as their leader will lose. That guy is one of the biggest losers.
They have him and Maxey, and they're just absolutely a tire fire.
Awful. They're awful.
Fuji Simeon says, who should the Warriors make a move for? If Giddey, then he better make sure he knows the age. I would say Vucevic and Giddey would be a nice ad if you could get that. I think Zion's coming here. I think they're going to try to get Zion. I think
he's going to get hurt on the flight opening a bag of pretzels.
That's okay. He's still fun to watch. Let's see here. Where do we at the end here? I think, do we have any more supers?
Fun to watch. I hope everyone had fun watching this one today. Thanks again to Sam's Chatterhouse. Like and subscribe on your way out if you have not. Join me for a watch party on Sunday, and we'll put this burdensome season down once and for all. Thank you very much. We gotta get off of this terrible date that we've been on with the 49ers, really.
As far as today, I'm headed down to camp for a little practice and a Shanahan presser and a little locker room stuff. And I'll be back at 6 for Niners Nightly tonight on Niners Nightly. John Dickinson stops by at 6:30. We'll get JD's thoughts on the Niners and the Cardinals, and we'll talk a little bit about the 5 moves that I think put the 49ers where they're at and the road back, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So that's coming up tonight on Niners Nightly. And then
JD, I said hello. It's one of the hardest working men in show business right there.
Who's that?
JD. Tell him I said hi.
Yeah, JD, absolutely. And then tomorrow morning, I'm back with you at 9 a.m. for a live stream. John Lund is going to stop by tomorrow at 9. Tomorrow at 10, I'll be back on the radio for 49er Forecast, which will be our final 49er forecast of the year, the day before the game.
There's nothing to forecast. The game's in a dome. Weather's not a factor, Larry.
And then Sunday, of course, join me on the post, and on the Krueger show in the post, and we will talk Niners, Cardinals, Kev, and everybody will be in the house. So look forward to that. And that's going to do it for us. Hope everybody has a great January the 3rd.
Happy New Year.
It was a fantastic holiday season. I do think it's interesting that all of the home teams in the college football playoff, all of the conference winners are all out. Oregon out. It was amazing watching Oregon getting blasted by Ohio State this weekend. And I've been all over the college, absolutely all over. I had Notre Dame, I had Ohio State, I had ASU in the points. I've been absolutely killing the college.
Let me tell you though, what's going to kill college more than anything else? It's just the greed. I mean, so congratulations, Notre Dame. You won the Sugar Bowl. Well, there are now 2 more games that you got to go win before anyone really gives a shit or pats you on the back. Your reward for winning a major bowl game is you just play more and more and more in the name of wringing every single dollar out of this sport. It does feel like it's been cheapened. And I'm going to tell you right now that this tournament, if they're going to keep it up, you need a reseeding after the second round. I think you got to go ahead and get these neutral site games just out of the mix. How are you going to ask a fan to go to 4 bowl games?
Well, I agree. First of all,
it's too much. It's too much.
It was interesting the first round because all of the teams that were at home won. And that was interesting because we're not used to seeing college football matchups late in the year at non-neutral sites. And if you put college students in, an environment that's very pro them, then you get all that emotion and everything on your side. And it just seemed overwhelming. And it seemed like it was like Brock Purdy can go into Philadelphia and beat the Eagles, But man, nobody's going into Happy Valley and beating Penn State. You know what I mean? And
Well, I mean,
nobody's
here's the
going
thing.
into the Horseshoe and beating the Buckeyes.
Indiana went and competed harder in South Bend than Georgia was able to compete against Notre Dame on a neutral field.
They're better. I mean, they're better coached, and Indiana's. But they, at the end of the day, who won that game? Notre Dame. That's in South Bend, and they won by multiple scores, didn't they? So it's just one of those things where college students, Brock Purdy can go in and reverse the momentum. It's really hard for a college student to go into a den of a packed den of haters and turn the entire thing around. So I don't know. To me, I do though think I would like to see less neutral and more home. Because to me, it's the drama is awesome. What makes the NFL playoffs better than the Super Bowl? It's the fans and the venues. The Super Bowl's it's big and it's the Super Bowl, but it's kind of sucks compared to like the conference title game. And the same thing I think can be said for college. These college when you're playing it in South Bend, now you're playing in Happy Valley. Wow, you're playing in just some random bowl game in the middle of some city that's hundreds of miles away from both campuses. I don't know.
By the way, what a tragic event for the city of New Orleans to have to go through and postpone the Sugar Bowl for one night. It was the right move to postpone the Sugar Bowl, obviously, and just very, very sad. Ike, who sponsors the channel, just opened up a restaurant in New Orleans, and he was there. He was on Bourbon Street about an hour before that maniac drove his truck right down the middle of the street, killing people. And
it was an absolute horrifying scene. I have a buddy from college who brought his family there, and we're literally on Bourbon Street 2 hours before that happened.
Yeah.
And, just to see, now we're in an era where it's not just about camera footage and TV news. People have their phones, and to see the dead bodies, to see people just lying in a pool of blood, dead, knowing that they were just partying on New Year's Eve in the French Quarter, to see, literally people's heads that got smashed and their brains are, literally I saw that. Yeah. I saw that yesterday. And I'm looking at this going, oh my God, this is the most graphic thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I avoided watching it. I didn't want to see it.
Unbelievable. I just stumbled into it. And all of a sudden there it was. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe what I'm looking at right here. And just the unthinkable. Absolutely the unthinkable. It's just unthinkable. So our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody. You and I have been to New Orleans. We've partied right there. We've been right there. And it's just unbelievably tragic and very, very sad. So our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody affected.
Be good to
by
each
that
other
tragedy.
this year. Make 2025 a year you're good to total strangers. That's what I'll try to do.
All right, that does it for us. Thanks to all of you guys. Have a great rest of your Friday. And go out there and live a good, clean existence. And tell them that Trent Baalke sent you.
No, go ahead. I thought you paused there for a second. I didn't know if you wanted me to go or not. Just wrap it up.